2022, and we have lots to discuss with you. We'll begin with, of course, the impending visit of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia. He is going on an official visit to Russia. He gave an interview to the RT, that is a Russian television, very recently, in which he talked about Pakistan-Russia relationship, also the Ukraine crisis. He also mentioned Kashmir. He talked about many other issues, and he talked about economic ties between Pakistan and Russia. This is going to be our leading segment of the day. The importance of enhancing relationship between Pakistan and Russia in the context of the interview that our Prime Minister gave to the RT. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Pakistan's fight against terrorism. 5 years have passed since Operation Raddul Fasad happened, and there have been, of course, messages from the DG ISPR as well as from the Chief of the Army Staff talking about the sacrifices that Pakistan has made, whether it be by the armed forces, whether it be by the civilians, as far as eliminating the scourge of terrorism and extremism is concerned. This is going to be our second story of the day. Then we are going to talk about the FATF plenary and working group meeting that is set to begin in Paris from yesterday. In fact, it has already begun. All eyes are going to be on Pakistan, or on whether it is going to be out of this grey list or not. Now, looking at the way Pakistan has moved forward as far as adhering to the conditionalities of the FATF, it looks obvious as if Pakistan might come out of this grey list, but then, as the previous times, who knows. Then our last segment of the day, last story rather of the day, concerns Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has felicitated the Saudi leadership on the founding day of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is today. The Premier has extended his heartiest greetings to, of course, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and of course the brotherly people of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin, ladies and gentlemen, with our first segment, first story of the day, and that concerns the relationship between Pakistan and Russia in the whole context of the interview that our Prime Minister Imran Khan gave to the Russian television RT. More in the following report.
Amid fluctuating geopolitical currents, Islamabad-Kremlin cultivated extremely pragmatic ties owing to converging interests of regional peace, security and development. The comprehensive expansion of their relations embodies multipolar trends and Russia's rising role in balancing the supercontinent's affairs. Signaling shared vision of regional security, Pak-Russia have been closely coordinating on Afghanistan in three primary platforms: Extended Troika, the Moscow Peace Talks, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Prime Minister Imran Khan is about to embark on a very important visit to Moscow at the invitation of Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Foreign Office, during the summit meeting, the two leaders will review the entire array of bilateral relations, including energy cooperation, Islamophobia, and the situation in Afghanistan. Reiterating Pakistan's long-standing vision, Prime Minister Khan categorically denounced camp politics by emphasizing that it wanted to have trade relations with all the countries to lift its populace out of poverty in an interview with Russia's state-owned media outlet Russia Today. During his visit to the great power, Premier Imran Khan is poised to share Pakistan's pivot towards geo-economic paradigm, which renders economic security at the forefront of its national security vision. The strategic energy cooperation through the impending construction of the Pakistan Stream gas pipeline, which will serve as a flagship project of Russia-Pakistani economic ties, will be key highlight of this visit. Earlier, military diplomacy represented a milestone in the Russian-Pakistani rapprochement as exhibited by Russian-Pakistani joint anti-terrorist drills last year, driven primarily by shared Afghan emanating terrorist and other unconventional security threats. Building upon the new model of regional engagement pioneered in April after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov paid his first trip to Pakistan in 9 years, it's vividly clear that both Pakistan and Russia are moving beyond outdated old Cold War era stereotypes.
Now, to talk more about the gamut of relationship between Pakistan and Russia and how important is this visit of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia in the context of enhancing and furthering this cooperation and collaboration and friendship, we've been joined by Farah Naz. She's a foreign affairs expert. Farah, thank you very much to have joined us. Farah, how important do you feel is this visit, A, of the Prime Minister to Russia, and B, also how important is it in the whole regional scenario?
Regional scenario is developing very rapidly, and we could see America in its presence in the way whatever is happening in Ukraine, and in this situation Prime Minister Imran Khan visit to Russia. I think this is very, very serious and very important. I was a little concerned due to the timing of this visit, because at one side we can see that there are two areas which is considered to be declared as independent regions in Ukraine, and then Prime Minister Imran Khan is planning to visit tomorrow. So we share good terms not only with Russia but Ukraine as well in terms of our diplomatic relationship. So I was, as analyst, I was a little concerned that whether it will lead towards some sort of problems within our relations with Ukraine, or what will be happening. I think the government of Pakistan and under the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan, they are very clear, and he's very clear on what they are going to do.
When you talk of what Prime Minister is clear about what he wants to do and how he wants to go ahead, when he was interviewed by the RT, he said he does not want to, Pakistan does not want to be part of any bloc.
Exactly.
This is not the first time he's talked about bloc politics, and that Pakistan wants to remain neutral as far as its relationship with different countries is concerned. How important is that as well?
I think this is very important, and I think this message coming out from the head of the state who is visiting Russia at this important time where geopolitics is getting reshaped. So where Russia, I think, is also very clear on where we could see in terms of Ukraine, there's a lot of pressure on Russia that from the Western media that probably Russia is going to attack Ukraine. And Russia continuously say that I'm not going to invade, or I'm more inclined towards diplomatic terms and peaceful terms. Same message is going from Prime Minister Imran Khan that I'm not party, or our state is not party to any sort of conflict in the region or in Ukraine, and any sort of situation that probably will be developing in times to come.
Now, he talked about the Ukrainian issue, and he said during the interview that he hoped for a peaceful resolution of the Ukrainian issue, and he also noted that greater cooperation between the United States, China and Russia is going to benefit mankind more than any conflict. He has always talked about a political solution to conflicts. Do you feel that the world understands that there needs to be a political resolution or solution to conflicts, or is that going to be put aside?
I think I always say that the world need to, and the powerful states particularly, they need to realize the fact that in this age there is not, and there's no more need to have bullets and guns and all of these things, where you can defeat your enemy through economic means and through all other narratives means and all those other sources of war, which has taken over all the traditional means of war. So in this age, either it is going to be the war of narratives and whatever narrative you're promoting, and I think Russia is doing an amazing job in that context, where it keeps saying that we want to have diplomatic solution to the problem that is prevailing in the region in terms of US, Russia and Ukraine. And in that situation, if the Western media and the way the West is doing, they are trying to push, Russia towards getting involved into conflict, I think the signaling is getting a bit shaky at this stage. And in the whole situation, I think peace and diplomacy is going to prevail over guns and bullets. That used to be something that through which you can bring your enemy to table. So no more, I think, these kind of strategies is going to work, where it is more hybrid warfare.
Let's hope that strategy works, and let's hope people and the parties concerned understand, because our Prime Minister is quite clear as far as where he wants to go and how he wants to move ahead as far as the regional geostrategic or geodynamic situation is concerned. Now, another thing that he wants to emphasize is on the economic relationship between Russia and Pakistan, where this relationship is strong. He wants to make it stronger, and I think the whole feeling is reciprocated by Russia as well. Do you feel that there will be important MOUs or agreements signed during the visit?
I think so, there will be, and I think this is not the first time that such kind of agreements are taking place between Russia and Pakistan at state level. It has been happening even in the past, but this time, when Russia has re-emerged as a powerful state one more time since its fall back in time, I think it's in the larger benefit of both states, Pakistan and Russia, to have closer connection and ties with one another. And then, of course, we are energy deficient country and Russia is energy rich country, and we are an agrarian society, and Russia is an importer of agriculture goods. So we can have this kind of arrangement that I do something for you, you do something for me, rather than relying on all other states through which we have to go through different arrangements. So I think it's going to bring a lot of economic benefits, not only for Pakistan but to Russia as well. And it's the game of win-win situation for both states, through which they both are going to benefit out of.
All right. In this whole geostrategic and geoeconomic scenario, we see that countries are siding either on one end or the other, and we see China and Russia becoming coming closer. We see the West tying itself to Ukraine and to other countries as well. In this whole formation of bloc politics that our Prime Minister is trying to avoid at the NUST, how can Pakistan move forward in order to create more tangible ties with countries such as Russia?
I think when you talk about blocks, it's not the states demanding us to be in this block or that block. It's the West pushing us. I think in international relations and international politics, it's all the game of your interest, your state interest, what you can benefit from. We have good terms with the United States, and we still have good terms. We aim to have good terms even in the future. But if they are kicking us every now and then, either to go and be in the bloc of China, they're not saying it openly, but their attitude, the sanctions that are coming along our way, that is taking us to be either this way or that way. It's not Russia or China who is demanding us to be with us or against us. That is the narrative of someone else. So I think if we can avoid partying and doing this cherry picking exercise at who we want to be in the future, I think that's not a very what's called a suggestive sort of measure. In international politics, from whoever and from whatever state your benefits are involved, you will be interacting with them. And I think we cannot, in whatever scenario develops in the future, of course, China is there, and it's a competitor of United States. Whoever disagree to it, I think that would be a very misjudgment of the situation. And it's not only China which is going to be a potential threat to America, it's the emergence of Russia again into the power politics. So of course, every state would like to be in a group of powerful states, no matter if it is the good bloc or the bad bloc. It's just a game of interest for us.
The Prime Minister also talked about climate change, Farah. Now, do you feel that Pakistan and Russia, amongst other things, could also jointly work together to alleviate this menace that is engulfing the entire world, that is climate change?
Yes, they can do so, and Pakistan has always promoted climate change policies and climate change narratives, and it has been a part of it. So if it happens that Pakistan when partnering in partnership with China and Russia and all other regional states, I think they can do an amazing job, and they have the potential where the industrialization and the companies and all of those are getting stationed in all these powerful states. So if they happen to group together, they can come up with some tangible solution to the climate change
Let's
solutions.
hope that tangible solutions come out of this visit of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia, and that it leads to a stronger and more reliable cooperation and collaboration between the two countries that are working together to become stronger friends and, of course, brotherly countries in the future as well. And let's hope Pakistan can also move forward in trying to find some kind of solution to issues that plague this region as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Farah Naz, to have joined us. We're a bit short of time. We would have talked much more to you, but inshallah next time. Thank you very much, ma'am, to have joined us. That was Dr. Farah Naz, Foreign Affairs expert and of course working at NUST, talking about the visit of our Prime Minister Imran Khan to Russia that is going to begin tomorrow. It's an official visit on the invitation of Vladimir Putin. This was our first story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the 5th anniversary of Operation Raddul Fasad and the way our valiant armed forces as well as our civilians have fought against the scourge, this menace of terrorism and extremism. More in the following report.
Pakistan has been fighting war against terrorism while extending its resources and capacity beyond limits. While it has been successful in the end to a great extent for achieving relative peace in the country, but it has come at a cost. According to ISPR, Pakistan has lost more than 80,000 lives during the war on terror at a cost of almost $126 billion. Pakistan Army's sweeping campaign against terrorism Operation Raddul Fasad has resulted into elimination of the menace as it cleansed internal and external elements responsible for creating anarchy in the country. According to ISPR, there is no organized terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan left due to the successful military operations. There has been 86% decline in terror attacks since 2013, and law enforcement agencies averted more than 50% of the terror threats during the last year. According to a report by Pak Institute for Peace Studies, Pakistan's effort against militancy and terrorism has resulted in a gradual decrease in the number of terrorist attacks and consequent fatalities in Pakistan since 2009. It is high time that international community should acknowledge Pakistan's commendable successes against terror groups and give due recognition to the contributions made by Pakistan to fight terrorism in the region.
Yasir Janjua, defense analyst, joins us online to talk about the efforts, the way of our valiant armed forces and our civilians in order to fight this scourge of terrorism and extremism. There have been many operations, of which Fasal is one very important operation, and we are on the 5th year of this very successful operation. Yasir Saab, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you very much.
When we talk of Raddul Fasad or the other operations that our armed forces have been involved in, there has been a considerable loss of life, but at the end of the day, we have had immense successes against such elements that are trying to create havoc inside our country. When we look back at these operations, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
See, Omar, thank you very much. We as a nation have rendered great sacrifices in this war against terrorism. Almost 80,000 people, 80,000 lives have been lost. But the freedom and the protection of freedom comes at a price. The brave nations always pay a price for their freedom. If our enemies think they could destabilize us or they could do these things to us and we would let them do it, that was not possible. So we have given sacrifices and we continue to give sacrifices. Only a day ago, a captain from the SSG got shahadat. And our armed forces are prepared for that. And let there be no mistake in the minds of Indians that we are there to thwart their designs. Whether what they are doing in Balochistan, we know it. We know it's a foreign hand, we know it's Indians. I have no qualms about saying that this is India and what they're doing, yet our resolve will never be challenged. We've been doing that. The first thing that comes to our mind when you ask me this question is, look, this is not an option. Pakistan will always be there and the armed forces will always be there to defend against these kind of miscreants and terrorists. So we'll always lay down the sacrifices, we'll always give our lives, but defend this country. And the nation can sleep well because the armed forces are prepared and we are very well prepared. And the enemies know it for a fact. They are scared to death because they know they can't fight a war against us and win it. So that's why they use these tactics. What they did it in 1971 and what they're trying to do now. But let them know it, that this is not the Pakistan of 1971.
True.
This is a Pakistan post-1998, which told them in 14 days' time that we detonated a bomb better than theirs. So let there be no mistake about it.
But Yasir, when we look at the recent events that are happening, whether it be in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or whether it be in Balochistan, it is evident that such elements that are retrying or resurfacing in order to create some kind of an unstable situation in Pakistan. Now that our armed forces as well as our civilians are battle ready, let's put it that way, because we have together fought very, very important operations, including this Operation Raddul Fasad, of which 5 years have now passed. Don't you feel that elements or countries that are involved against Pakistan understand that fact? Why are they continuing despite that when they know that they will have a crushing defeat?
See, we have been so battle hardened and they know it that they can't go into a full-scale war with us. We've been fighting this and our troops have been trained or they've been doing this again and again. So what then they think about is these insurgency operations, these terrorists that they subvert the minds of the people. There are always some people who can be subverted. But see how many of them are there. They are just countable on the fingertips. So we're not worried about them. In this process, yes, we lose some lives because there is collateral damage. But however, our resolve is not shaken. We are as strong as we were yesterday. Nevertheless, we continue to monitor and we continue to take care of the situation, despite the fact that the Indians or the enemies will continue to trying their efforts. But they know it for a fact that they cannot win in a full-scale war. That's why they keep doing those things.
All right, I'd like to quote what the Chief of the Army Staff said. We salute the supreme sacrifices of our martyrs and the spirit of our great nation. The spirit of our great nation is, it is undeniable. I mean, the way we have come as one against such elements is exemplary for any nation. What's your take on that?
See, Pakistani nation is joint, is combined by one spirit. That is our religion that combines us. That's a driving force. Indians do not have that. And that spirit of Islam or our religion is our binding force.
True.
We saw that in 1965 and we've seen that in future battles as well, or that Pakistani nation comes to stand behind their armed forces whenever there is a need. So it's just not the armed forces which are fighting. In 1948, the people of Pakistan went inside Kashmir and fought with their Kashmiri brothers. And if there is a time, they will again happen like that. The question is, Indians do not have this kind of binding force. There are so many religions, so many ethnicities, that Indians cannot be on one page. The only reason for them to unite together is Pakistan bashing, and their election slogan is always Pakistan bashing.
Of course.
Pakistan elections or Pakistani politics, you will never find India bashing as our slogan. So we have something, our religion, that is our driving force. And alhamdulillah, that spirit has always been shown by the nation. Whether you see the artists, whether you see people from all walks of life, they all come together and they stand up for the nation and do whatever they can for the nation.
That is so true. I'd also like to quote one of the tweets that was posted by the DG ISPR, in which he talks about the Raddul Fasad operation that has placed the security of the people of Pakistan as its core objective. That is what the army has given us, a very secure and a stable environment, or else Pakistan would have been in shambles had it not been this collective resolve by our armed forces as well as by our people.
See, when this all started in the early 2000s, the initial years were tough, but Pakistan Army has come a long way, and we have secured what was, others were saying it was impossible. Like the Americans, they failed in Afghanistan, but Pakistan Army has been praised for what it has done in South Waziristan and North Waziristan and Swat and in Balochistan. You will find by and large one odd incident happening here and there, but what is the percentage of those incidents? By and large, people of Pakistan, for example, Islamabad, there used to be so many terrorist incidents happening every now and then. God forbid, nothing has happened, touch wood, nothing will happen.
Inshallah.
This is all because of the armed forces and the resolve of the armed forces that they go out there and secure us. So the nation sleeps well. So we are very confident that Pakistan armed forces are doing their best for the nation.
All right. When we look at the statistics as far as the different operations, including Operation Raddul Fasad is concerned, scores of Al-Qaeda terrorists were captured or killed. Biometric operations were held in the thousands. There was a decline in such operations from earlier in the 2000s to now, and this trend continues. There is an off and on shoot since the last few months in such incidents that are happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Balochistan. But nevertheless, it's not the same situation as it used to be at one time, and we've all been witness to all of this. What needs to be now, in your point of view, the way that our armed forces need to go forward, in your point of view as an analyst, along with the people of Pakistan? What should our collective resolve be?
See, the reason these incidents have now started reducing, one, that our response has been much improved. Two, the situation in Afghanistan has also changed. Now there is a Taliban government which has taken a pledge that they will not let the Afghan soil to be used against Pakistan. However, somebody might say, why these incidents are happening? These are happening because previously they had sanctuaries, Indians had sanctuaries there. They had their consulates there. Now they are no longer there, but there are always some people who can be bought,
True.
So what as a nation, what we have done is we have taken control of our security ourselves as a nation. And when I say armed forces, I mean all the law enforcement agencies, just not the military. It's the police, it's the paramilitary forces. Now, with the fencing completing, almost 94-95% of the fencing has been completed. We've plugged in those gaps from where those miscreants could come into Pakistan. So there's a lot that we have done. But this is an evolving process, this is an ongoing process. We can't just sit here and say, well, we've done enough, now there's not going to happen. And no, there's always going to be something. So we have to be prepared, and we are continually prepared. That's why you find one odd incident happening, but that does not mean that they have succeeded. Balochistan is a very, very difficult situation for anybody to understand. The thing is, there have been in the past some misgivings about the treatment of the Balochis. But this government and the armed forces leadership has been very particular to alleviate those concerns, and we have come a long way. The Baloch youths are now being part of the national mainstream. They are coming and joining the armed forces. They are joining the other mainstream organizations and government jobs. So that's one way of us as the people of Pakistan giving it back to the people of Balochistan for those shortcomings that they thought they had. Because those were being exploited by the enemies using money or whatever reasons. So we now are in a much better situation, and we continue to keep responding to situations and improving our response.
Now, speaking of response, the last such incident that happened was on Sunday, of course, in which 5 terrorists were killed. That happened in North Waziristan, and 1 soldier embraced Shahadat. What, in your point of view, is the issue as far as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is concerned? And do you feel that the strategy that our armed forces and our intelligentsia and our civilians need to take, and our government needs to take, as far as these two areas are concerned, where we see more and more incidents happening in the last few months, should be different or should be similar?
See, I've been saying in the past as well, the only recipe for addressing the problems in those areas is development, work. There should be jobs for people. The youth should be employed or employable. They should create opportunities for them to do their own businesses or to be employed. When you involve them in the national mainstream, for example, PTM, they tried to bring in PTM as a counterbalancing force, but it has vanished, you know. So you will still find 100% they will never finish. So if whatever happened in South Waziristan the other day, this thing might happen in another few months. However, what's the percentage, as I said? So the only way to do it is for the government of Pakistan to make sure that the development funds go into the right places, they get their development budgets, the youth get the jobs, and they remain connected to the mainstream.
True.
So that is how we can keep them going astray from the national mainstream.
What about, I mean, you talked about the youth. The government has a lot of initiatives as far as the youth is concerned. We just saw yesterday also when the Prime Minister launched the e-commerce platform as well. And there are going to be so many other announcements to be made by the Prime Minister in the coming days and months as well. When we look at the youth, we know that the government is going in the right direction as far as that is concerned. What about those people who, as you said in the beginning of the interview, that they can be easily bought? Is there any counter way to kind of stop them from being bought by such forces that want to create havoc in our country?
See, the armed forces, the intelligence agencies and the government have been talking to these so-called people who have gone astray. Some of them have laid down their arms. Most of them actually have laid down their arms. But there are some who are sitting overseas, for example, Bramdag Bukti and the likes of him, who are sitting overseas. But they are far and few. They are countable on fingertips. The thing is, to engage with those even who lost their tracks is important. A few months ago, when the government was talking to Taliban or the Pakistani Taliban, some of the opposition members were saying, why are we talking to them? See, they're still Pakistanis. If they have lost their way, we should try first and foremost to try and bring them back into the mainstream. What if they lay down their arms? What if they try to become part of the nation? So why should we? Because at the end of the day, they are still Pakistanis. So if they give up their ways, why not? However, those hardened criminals who will not change their ways, they will get no respite from the government of Pakistan or the armed forces. They will get their treatment they deserve. And as you keep seeing, every other day, if you see 5 or 7 terrorists getting killed, those are the people who, despite open offers by the government of Pakistan and the armed forces and the intelligence agencies, have not changed their ways. So then they meet their fate.
All right. And finally, Yasir, there is a national security policy that is now in place. There's also a national action plan that is in place since a couple of years. How important is for all parties concerned to apply the principles that have been put forward in these two policies in letter and spirit and move forward to make Pakistan even more stable than before, and to even thwart the small incidents that occur now and then in these two provinces?
See, as far as the national security policy and the national action plan is concerned, all these policies and plans are very good on paper. They cannot be executed properly if we are all not on the same page. If the government is just trying to do, and the opposition or the political parties for their own gains or for their own political agenda, they remain aloof, you cannot have the results that you want. For this purpose, for terrorism, this is one cause that we all as a nation have to be on the same page. And that is only possible when we, the politicians of this country, they realize that this country cannot be thrown away at the mercy of the terrorists.
That is so true. This is our motherland. I think all the parties concerned need to realize that, whether it be the political parties, the intelligentsia. And I think our armed forces realize it the most, so does our intelligentsia. And so do our people. There are only certain segments that want to create havoc because they are influenced, let's say, one way or the other, monetarily or otherwise, by parties that want them to create havoc. But nevertheless, the way these operations have been conducted, Yasir, and I'm sure in the future as well, if and when such operations are needed, our armed forces and our intelligentsia and our public will be on one page when it comes to making Pakistan a terrorist-free and extremist-free country. Thank you very much to have joined us, Yasir.
Thank you
so much to have come after all this time. It's a pleasure to have you on our studios.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you very much.
Let's come to our last two stories, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very quickly, the first concerns the FATF. FATF plenary is to begin from Monday, and of course, this is happening in Paris. Pakistan is all set to look forward as far as exiting the grey list is concerned. Now, when we see the different plenaries that have happened in the past as well, Pakistan has always advocated its cause. Nevertheless, some kind of new conditionality has been put by the FATF that Pakistan has again tried to comply with, and as far as the latest conditionalities are concerned, Pakistan has more or less complied with almost all of them. Let's see where this plenary takes Pakistan, whether it will remain in the grey list or whether it will come back to the white list. We nevertheless remain optimistic because of the way Pakistan has been moving forward. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Prime Minister Imran Khan, who's felicitated the Saudi leadership on the kingdom's founding day. Now, our Prime Minister Imran Khan also hopes for prosperity of Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its people. He, of course, tweeted about it. He said heartiest greetings to the custodian of the two holy mosques in his tweet, as you can see in the parallel window as well. And of course, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and the brotherly people of the kingdom. He also hoped for the prosperity of Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Let's hope and let's wish for these ties to come and to become even stronger than before. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segments and stories that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Our Prime Minister is, of course, going to go to Russia, so we wish him and his entourage all the very best. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.